Hello and welcome to IndieComic.Ninja, episode 11. This is a special episode this week, I guess. It's not the first Tuesday of the month, as you might notice. It is, in fact, the second to last Friday of the month, maybe? I'm not sure. But this is a special episode because a couple weeks ago, I got together with my good friend Thom Hotka, who you might remember from my first interview on this podcast, and creator of Nextuus, The Search for the Ocean Shard. It is a webcomic that is a lot of fun to read. It's a space opera, you might say. Head over to 515comics.com or Nextuus, Nextuus.com, to read that comic for free on the internet. It's nice. But if you want to just learn more about it, I guess. It's been going on for about 10 years now, and this particular interview is actually about that. It's to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Thom doing the webcomic along with his friend Trey, and the interview is actually conducted by myself and Matty Martin. Yeah. I don't know. I guess we just got together a couple weeks ago and did this thing and had a lot of fun talking. We talked for over 2 hours. So it's a bit of a long episode today, this week, I guess. Maybe if you do it in one sitting, that could be fun. Maybe space it out a bit. A couple other things, though, that I would like to point out, that IndieComic.Ninja is joining the Nerd Church Radio Network. So there'll be a couple of changes coming up in the future as far as episodes of this particular podcast goes. There will actually be a weekly show changing over from the Nerd Church Radio network over to this one. It's called Indie Tuesday, where we review Image comic books and maybe some other bigger named indie books or indie publications. And it's with myself, Ben Dupay, Andrew Southern, and Ramondo Burnside. So it's a lot of fun getting together with those guys. I've been doing that podcast with them on that other network for about a month or so now, and so it's been a lot of fun getting to know them and getting to be involved in another network of fellow comic book aficionados. So you can look forward to that show coming into this feed starting, I think, next week. I guess you'll find out if you are a subscriber. So if you're not, if you are actually listening to this because you're a friend of Thom's, I thank you for choosing to listen to it here. And if you'd like to hear more about indie comics in general, I have a monthly podcast where I interview creators, much like this particular interview. And there will be, like I just said, a monthly podcast where we will be reviewing and spoiling, I suppose, independently creator-owned comic books on a weekly basis. So thanks again for listening, and here is the 10-year interview with Thom Hotka and Trey Peterson. Hello and welcome to 515 Radio. It's been a couple years since we've done one of these. I'm Thom, and with me today we have the co-writer of Nextuus, Search for the Ocean Shard, Trey Peterson.
How's it going, guys?
And then we also have a frequent guest on 515 Radio and reader of Nextuus, The Search for the Ocean Shard, Matty Martin.
Hello.
And then we also have first-time guest on 515 Radio.
No,
first-time guest.
Didn't we do the comic? No, we did Comic-Con, but that was you.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if you count that. That was really a Tomcast.
Yeah, that was a Tomcast. Yeah, that was a video.
But no, first-time guest, long-time reader.
Yeah. Dexter Jacobs of IndieComic.Ninja.
When was the last time we did this? This was 2-3 years ago? It had to be 2000. It was when the book 3 came out, or...
It was just before, actually. I was watching the previous one today.
Was it the 8-year?
It was the 8-year podcast.
Okay.
So it was 2 years ago. It was just before... Actually, I guess it was like a full year before book 3 came out, since that was just this year. So it's been... that's what we're here for. It's been 10 years of doing Nextuus. Come this Christmas, Nextuus, The Search for the Ocean Shard, in this version of the webcomic, will have been online and being created for 10 years. So we thought we'd get together and do a little Q&A podcast. We did it once before, so now it's a thing.
You did it twice before.
We should maybe do it a little bit more
You did a 5-year.
often.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But technically, this is the fourth time because me, Trey, and Tom did one back in 2012, but we didn't end up we ended up scrapping it, saying we would do it again, and we didn't end up doing it. It was right after the Comic-Con.
So see, it's totally a thing. I don't know. We could certainly
Try to do stuff more
I don't know.
often.
I like letting people build up questions.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Maybe just get together monthly and BS for a while.
Absolutely not. Who has the time?
We've tried.
Yeah, who could make a monthly podcast
That was so forced.
about comics? Who would do such a thing?
I don't know him. I don't know the guy.
Sounds like a loser.
No, I mean if that's your life.
So we've petitioned you, the readers and listeners and watchers and what have yous, to come up with some questions to ask me and ask us about Nextuus, about making comics, just things that you've wondered, and we've compiled those into a nice list. We're just gonna go ahead and go through those and just try and answer them all. So Matty and Dexter, as readers of the comic, are kind of here to act as moderators and also weigh in with any insight they may have on any of the questions. I guess let's just start off.
All right. Question numero 1 from my good pal Austin Hamlin at Austin Hamlin on Twitter. When you started, did you think it would go on this long?
No. When I first started doing Nextuus this time, I was at a point in my life where I didn't really like thinking that far ahead. So, if someone asked me, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years or 10 years? I'd be like, I don't know, not answering stupid questions like that. And so, no, I don't think when I started this that I ever thought that when I was 30, I would still be doing it. And in fact, back when I started doing webcomics and I was interviewing other people who did webcomics, I would pretty much make fun of people who were older than me and were still doing webcomics. So yeah, that opinion has changed.
Yeah, it's fun when you're 20 to tell people you draw webcomics. Now when you're in your 30s and you say you kind of want to stop. You kind of want to stop what you're saying right then and there. And just...
that's what when I was 20, I would have thought that. But I actually don't mind, and I actually really like that making comics is a thing I do. I don't usually say, I make web comics. I'll say, I make a comic, and you can read it on the web. I don't ever actually say that. I don't say you can read it on the web. Does anybody say that?
Yeah.
No.
I do.
Okay.
I make websites.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I mean, just online, not on the web.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you can
Refer
use
to it as the
whatever.
web.
I mean, soda, pop, web, online.
But yeah, so I didn't have any real idea that I would be doing this for 10 years or that it would be carrying on past 10 years. But I'm glad that it has, because it's been fun.
I've answered this in the last one, where, just to reiterate real quick, was me thinking because the subtitle of the whole series is The Hunt for the Ocean Shard, I always thought that was just going to be one story in a I guess, novel of several stories.
Right.
And only, it was 2 years ago we talked about it, but it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago that you finally can realize that no, it is all one big story, and that is The Hunt for the Ocean Shard is just the story. And I've always thought of, you could do other adventure stuff, but because here we are 10 years later, it's kind of no, you don't really need to because you're still not close to finishing it yet. And I mean, the only thing I always kind of wondered was keeping the subtitle of it instead of just calling it Nextuus.
Yeah, well, I mean, initially it was just going to be an episodic thing where it's this is one part of the story of Nextuus.
This is season 1.
Right.
Kind of, that's what I always interpreted it as, because I remember originally, I think, this would have been 8 years ago or something. I remember when not 9 years ago, probably 6 to 8 years ago, when you said that your original layout for it was only 20 chapters.
Oh, yeah.
20
I had
to
no
30
idea.
chapters.
I pulled that number out of nowhere. I had absolutely no idea of
Yeah.
how long it was going to be. But that was kind of initially the idea. And it's something that, like, I kind of like leaving that foot in the door of, like, oh yeah, this is Nextuus : the search for the ocean shard, because there could be Nextuus : any number of other sort of stories.
Yeah,
So-
and the fun thing is with your book now, you're having people create stories. You're creating stories for people, right? So the books, the bonus part of having your books now is you are telling other stories.
Yeah.
There are other stories. They're small stories. They're not necessary reads. They're just bonuses, but these bonus stories are fun in the sense that you're getting little snippets of the world around that not necessarily, I guess the proper term would be, but also isn't, is world building.
Sure.
Because it's not technically building on to what's coming or what's already happened, but it is just giving you little previews of the world around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's been a lot of fun to just be able to, like, explore myself or let other people explore kind of different aspects of the universe of Nextuus.
I think maybe what Matt was getting at with the question you kind of just asked was the real question, which is, when will the hunt for the ocean shard actually start?
Zing!
Burn, dude. Burn.
Whoa! I think in chapter 10 is when it,
okay.
when it actually... No.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that being said, though, like, I mean, I don't even know if, because it doesn't really necessarily feel like they've actually, I mean, they've started looking for it, but only to the degree where, like, they opened up the map and started going in the general direction, and they just kind of keep running into issues.
Yeah.
And that being said, like, I don't, the whole time I read it, I'm not thinking to myself, like, well, where are they going to get the dang shard? Like, but
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
and the nice thing about it, though, is just like your use of character and use of situation. It's not distracting, but that is the story, and it's nice and fun and enjoyable. So I didn't mean to
No, that's okay.
rag
That's
on
okay.
that.
That's,
Yeah,
and
you did.
No, I did.
No, it's okay.
Because it was
It's
funny,
okay.
but
it's definitely something that I'm acutely aware of.
yeah,
That-
I imagine you are.
That it's they really haven't done a lot of searching yet. But yeah, so much of the story is just about, okay, so like they've got the mission, but then all this stuff happens and they got to deal with that before they can really deal with the mission.
Well,
So
I mean, and really, since it is a bit of a space opera, arguably, and that's kind of like what the whole episode of The Phantom Menace is just like they just keep running into issues and they're not actually kind of getting to whatever episode 2 was. But and so
I believe that was Attack of the Clones.
I don't remember.
Just block that out, huh?
Yeah,
it's not important.
but yeah, I think just what I'm saying is just you're getting through the story in a very enjoyable way. I meant that as encouragement.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say.
Do we have another question, I suppose?
Yes, at Jet Falco on Twitter. What do you like and not like the most about creating a series going on this long? Any notable high, low points?
Doing a series for this long, I would say a definite like negative for me is that, I mean, it's sort of like everything is sort of like two-sided. There's a positive and a negative to everything I'm going to say. Like, I don't like that I'm like stuck in one storyline. You know, when I first started doing Nextuus, I was actually doing 2 different comics. One that was very different theme and style, and you know, and that was a lot of fun to like have 2 completely different outlets. Just doing one big long story for 10 years, it's like, man, sometimes you kind of want to work with different characters or work with a different style or do different themes. However, the other side of that coin is I love how much I've been able to develop this style and work with this story, and like if I was still doing 2 comics and I was still having these 2 different outlets, I would not have gotten nearly as far as I have. So it's good, but I also don't necessarily like aspects of it. I mean, it's really fun to be able to say that I've been doing something for 10 years. So that's another positive. Like, that's pretty cool that I've stuck with something that long and that I have a lot to look back on and say, here's where I came from and here's what I've been able to accomplish. So that's really nice. Notable high and low points. High points for me in doing a long ongoing series like this are whenever I get to a really like fun or big or exciting scene in the comic, because a lot of it's just build up, a lot of it's just like character interactions, but every now and then you'll have a scene like, you know, the plane chase where 115 uses the missile launcher, or you'll have the big bar fight scene. Like, those kinds of things are really, really exciting and really fun and sort of help to punctuate whole runs, like whole years worth of work of like, there's all this build up and now we've got this super awesome scene that everybody's gonna really like. That sort of stuff is really rewarding and really a lot of fun. And things like putting the books out and like coming out with new merchandise and going to conventions and being able to promote it, that's really fun and exciting. And then low points, I mean, just the slog of like, I don't feel like doing a page today. I don't feel like drawing today, but I have to, because if I don't, I'm not advancing the story. And so I just have to kind of push myself to keep doing it. And that's not always a lot of fun. Sometimes I don't want to draw Nextuus, but I know that I really do. And, you know, that's really any project, but especially one that you're working on for a really long time. There's more of those, more of those days when it's like, I don't really want to keep doing this, but I do.
If I could poop caboose that, just add on to the end of what you were saying.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it is. And if it's not, it's gonna be. I have broken Thomas.
You heard it here.
He's a little red in the face now.
You heard it here. Poop caboose.
Poop caboose.
I'll get it on the Wikipedia tonight.
Yeah.
Can we trademark that?
What I like and not like is, for me personally, when you and I sit down and we'll have our development rap sessions, I suppose you could say, when we just bounce ideas back and forth and sometimes toss stuff out over the side. I really like that development aspect of it, of coming up with a story and getting it in our heads what is going to happen either immediately or further down the road, or if you run into a problem at some point, like, hey, this isn't actually going to work with what I thought it was going to do, and we do like an emergency session of coming up with the basic storyline. And I really like being able to do that. The part I don't like is that sometimes we'll come up with something that is far, far, far down the road that is super, ultra, mega kick-ass. Mm-hmm. But it's like, oh, we gotta wait now.
Yeah. Yeah, that is definitely hard.
That is really hard.
That is a bummer.
So it's really exciting, but it just the wait, the anticipation of having to wait to get to these parts.
Yeah. And having to know about it.
Having to know about it and not talk to anybody but you. Yeah. Which isn't that bad, but still, it's just like...
Yeah, it's nice to at least have one person to
confide
be able to be like, this is going to be great, and not spoil it.
This is our own secret, our own little secret.
It's already spoiled for us. Everything's ruined.
Everything is ruined.
That being said, how is it going to end?
All right, so we didn't have a spoiler warning, and we're not going to.
What's really going to happen is for time sleep and we'll it and we
like minutes of just
be like pointed would end that way.
I'm.
You guys look really sad.
That's okay. It's okay. It's okay, Tom. Just keep doing it. People are like that.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, you know, like you guys aren't representative of all the reading population, so I mean, maybe other people will like it.
You know.
Well, I have a quick question to Trail on that.
Yeah.
Not focus too hard on it, but you kind of answered a little bit. But I also wondered, because you've been doing this for 10 years, because you know this has been your sole project. You did have NQD, and you stopped doing it. Because of doing this 10 years, have you ever and while this is a job for you, it is a company, you do make stuff for it. I say this because there are some creators that do this stuff. Have you ever wanted to take a small break and maybe make a small comic project. Like, because if you've been doing this for so long, it has been your only project. Have you ever thought of maybe branching into another creative thing, like a comedy comic, a drama comic, or something like that? Maybe just for like a month or two, take time off from Nextuus and maybe do another a project just as something to, you know, maybe fulfill some kind of enjoyment that you have, or maybe stretch out your own creative feat, I guess. You know, like doing a small side project to see how that would go.
Sure. I've thought about it before, but I've never thought of it in like put Nextuus on hold and do this other thing. I've thought of other projects that might be fun to work on, but I've never really approached it of like, oh, like this is something like I would take time off from telling the story to do, mostly because I really don't want to stop. Like, because it's so long, it's like I feel like I have to keep moving. Like, the consistency of updates is important to telling the story.
Yeah, no, it is. And I mean, the only reason I said that is because I know we've seen from people that we've known when, like, we know people who start a project, start a project, because they just have so many ideas rolling in their head, and they're just not in that mindset.
Right. Or they just tell shorter stories.
They tell shorter stories. And the reason I ask about taking breaks is because I know how much you are dedicated to this, to make sure that your updates is consistent. And I mean, that's not to say you only focus on this. You also do design work on DeviantArt for other people. You've done contests with other people. You know other things. But you haven't done another comic.
Yeah, that's true. And that's sort of where I get a lot of my like non-Nextuus outlet, is taking part in like contests and things on DeviantArt. Like, it's just fun of like, I didn't have to think of anything, or I only had to think in the confines of, you know, whatever the rules for this contest were. And so it's just something that it's like, if I think I have time to do it in addition to doing Nextuus stuff, it's like a fun like little offshoot outlet for my art. But no, I haven't really thought about, like, that's not a bad idea. Most of the time when I think about, like, could I do, like, another comic? I'm trying to think of another Nextuus thing that I could do.
Yeah.
Like, can I do another mini comic to, like, make and sell at shows? Or is there, like, something that I could do to, like, enrich the site or enrich the world of Nextuus some more? But yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind if I ever do really feel like I'm out of it. Like, remember that could be an option to just say, I'm gonna explore a different avenue for a couple months, and Nextuus will be on the H word hiatus, and we'll come back.
Which is always a scary thing to do, because I mean, that's kind of even what happened with NQD for a while, is that it would go on some hiatuses, and eventually, I know you said you just kind of decided to stop doing it.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, and I always feel a little bad, and I feel like that's why I call it the H word, is because so many webcomics go on hiatus, and it just means that they died.
Yeah, they died.
But like, and that's kind of what happened with NQD.
I mean, that's what happens with mine. I mean, I have to take breaks because I get burned out, but then eventually I just kind of don't want to go back. And it's hard to. I mean, like I said before, you and I both know people who start a project, put it on hold for a little bit to do a little other thing, and then they put that on hold and go do another thing, and they never finish anything.
But I feel like, having done a comic for 10 years, like, if I wanted to do something like that, I feel like my readers would probably, like, give me benefit of the doubt that, yeah, he's probably actually going to come back when he says he is, because, like, he's just going to abandon 10 years of, like, this story and not ever finish it. Like, that would be terrible.
And you do a pretty good job of not lying to the internet.
I really try to not
lie. You're a weird minority.
Yeah.
Goat13 on DeviantArt. I don't know what that was. Goat13 on DeviantArt says or asks, you go to a lot of conventions. Who were some of the most memorable people you met? Followed up by, were there any strange and or cool people you encountered?
We've gone to a lot of conventions, and conventions are super fun, and you meet a lot of cool and interesting people. I don't know, like, I remember, like, the thing that really stuck out to me was at our first convention seeing Linkara, who Matty and I are big fans of, and he used Matty, Trey, Kyle, and I in a bit and put us in one of his videos, which was really, really cool. Like, what an amazing experience for, like, your first con of, like, hey, there's an internet personality that I really like. Hey, he asked us to be on film in a little video. That's awesome.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
4.5 years ago we did that. I mean, we've seen him quite a few times since then, but yeah, I forgot that we were actually in a bit for the channel Awesome.
Yeah. So that was pretty fun. And just like, I don't know, it's hard to pick out. Of course, and I'm sure that Trey and Matty would agree that, like, one of the coolest things is when people actually come to your table and are like, "Hey, I read your comic. Cool!" Like, and they actually, like, know who you are, like, not just because they saw you at the convention last year, but because they actually read your stuff online. Like, that's always pretty amazing.
People that come I remember there's one guy that you see, the guy that he buys the book and then he waits and you show back up with the new book and he buys it. You've had a couple people like that.
Yeah.
You've had people who, say, "Oh, I've seen this. Like, those are the ones that stand out. The other ones that for me stand out are the ones, like, conventions are crazy.
Yeah.
They're
Very.
crazy. You see a lot of unique stuff, but eventually after doing this for 4.5, almost 5 years, you kind of go numb to it. Like, we see this, and the thing about it is we see the same people at every convention.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, since we kind of run a pretty tight circuit in the Midwest, you know, in, like, the tri-state area, yeah, there's not as many people who are going to these conventions as, say, you know, if we were on one of the coasts where you've got denser population and more opportunities to go to shows and things like that. So we're definitely going to, you know, it's much more likely that we're going to see people that we recognize. And I think that was actually the other point that I wanted to make, was that I think one of my favorite things about having done cons so much is, people call it con family, where you just go and you see people who have tables and they go to a lot of the same shows that you go to, and it's like, hey, those guys are here. And, like, as a kind of introverted person most of the time, it's really comforting to go to a show and be like, okay, I'm 2 tables away from these guys, or
there's John Ira Thomas.
Yeah,
You know.
like, you know,
There's Carter Allen.
Yeah, there's some people that I know here and that I'll be able to, like, go and talk to, and you know, if I'm feeling worn out, like, I can go make the rounds and, like, get charged up talking to people who are excited to be here and stuff. So that's a really cool thing about going to shows.
Mm-hmm.
Same Goat 13 asks, if Nextuus had a soundtrack, what would it sound like?
Tijuana Brass. Done.
So I thought about this, and actually probably I'm going to use intro and outro music made by my friend Dustin. His group is called White Flashes, and I like it. I use his music for a lot of stuff. That's, like, I really like his music, and I feel like a lot of it does work with sort of some of the tones in the comic, but I feel like it would be a lot of different stuff. I mean, I always say one of my biggest influences for the comic is, like, Cowboy Bebop, which, if you've ever watched that show, there's the whole spectrum of different types of musical elements in that show. And I think that probably Nextuus would, I mean, it's sort of a cheap answer of, like, all music would be great. But I do think that, like, a mix of a lot of different styles of music would be good. I don't know a lot about music, so I don't feel comfortable like actually getting into, like, what styles or what artists I think would best represent Nextuus. But at least for my friend Dustin's stuff, White Flashes, it's kind of like, I guess you'd call it like electronica, where it's just sort of like cool repeating beats with some overlays, and, like, I just feel like not quite techno.
I think,
but
I think for me, kind of going off what you said, like the Cowboy Bebop future jazz is what that's.
Yeah.
I think is
Okay.
Kind of music
Yeah.
that they wrote for the show, at least, and then there's a genre of music that I've recently been introduced to called electro swing, and so it's kind of similar to like future jazz, where it's kind of got like that underlying future-y electro sound, but then it's got that element of swing thrown in, so it's a little bit more upbeat, a little more happier, and so, like, I think at least in the more positive scenes in the comic where, like, things are feeling a little more upbeat, like, that's kind of what I think about, and probably just because it's an outer space future
Yeah.
story, and so that's why I apply that like electro feel to it. But that's definitely what I would often kind of think about when I read it.
Right on.
What about Coplant No?
Oh yeah. I think that's what would you call that kind of music?
Definitely instrumental with a bit of electronica mixed in with it. But there's hardcore jazz. Because they've got saxophones and trumpets and everything in there.
That is a really good... Yeah, I listen to that a lot while I draw. So
I think like a good solid answer is just jazz, because you get kind of the highs and lows with that genre.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know what it would be.
Oh!
What?
Video game music?
No, just the Sonic theme. No, I've always thought video game.
Yeah.
Because it's so heavily video game influenced.
Sure.
And not like that like bit one.
Right.
But RPG, like that kind of adventure theme.
Yeah.
Because
Makes
like
sense.
you've said, it's very Final Fantasy influenced in a certain way.
For sure.
It would be that kind of orchestrated music.
Kinda like-
I've always
yeah.
seen it as.
Like a good Final Fantasy VII.
It's subtle. The music's not like you don't. It's music that you don't focus on, but it's there.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And it's cool on its own, but it helps set tone and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of those are good. All of that.
All right.
Death metal? K-pop?
Ooh, K-pop.
All right, yeah, let's talk about it.
From Doodlebop on DeviantArt, are there any large set pieces / scenes that have been part of the script for a long time, but at the last minute were removed or pushed around in the storyline?
Yeah, like a lot. Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, definitely more now than when we started. I mean, I think for like you came on chapter 5
Pretty much.
as co-writer when I started having you help come up with ideas, and we came up with a nice timeline of things. That timeline that we first came up with was pretty much unchanged. I mean, at least for 5 or 6 chapters.
Yeah, we didn't touch it too much.
Yeah, we didn't move a lot of stuff around.
But we were pretty happy.
Maybe
with it.
even longer than that. You know, I would say maybe even up through chapter like 12 or 13. And at about that point, that's when a lot of other elements started getting put in, and just like started thinking about like, oh wait, we got to change this and that. Just as a quick example of this, because it does happen a lot, and I can't think of all of them. But a quick example would be a very recent chapter, I think like chapter 20 or 21. I had to do a lot of rewriting because I reread the comic and was like, oh wait, they were never going to do that. I need to rewrite this because they're saying that they're going to do something that was never the plan. And it was just the scene where they're at the old Stoltz family farm, and Randall's talking about the plan of, we're going to split up and try and go to the... Well, he doesn't say we're going to split up and try and go to both different locations on the map. But that was how I originally wrote that chapter. But way back in chapter 5, he's like, let's just go to this one, because I don't want to go to the other one, and I hope that it's at this one. So I had to change it, because it's like, oh wait, no, we're not. They're not going to split up. That's not the plan. That was never the plan. Let me change that real quick. So yeah, there are lots of rewrites and lots of... I mean, there are elements that are yet to come that I would have, that 5 years ago, I would have assumed we would have been long past them by now, but they've been moved around, and there have been things that we've dropped completely just because it turned out either that didn't make sense, or the story kind of went in a different direction, and it's like, oh, I guess we don't really need to do that now, or we found a better way to do something. So, yeah, stuff gets changed around all the time.
All the time.
I feel like that was vague, because I don't want to, say, because so many
We
things
don't
are
want
still
any
going to
spoilers.
happen.
We
Yeah,
don't want
I don't
any
want to.
spoilers.
But there was at least one example of something that I could kind of talk about. So,
Which character had the longest planning time, and which character had the least?
for this question, I wasn't sure exactly what she meant.
I think I can. I think I know what it means.
Yeah.
When I'm interpreting this, which character kind of had
The longest developing
the
time.
longest developing time, and how then, not to step over you guys,
Sure.
but the way I interpreted this was something like, I think it was probably 4 years ago you told me about, Ross,
Yeah.
And he's finally been introduced in the past few months.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea that I had,
sure.
which is,
Okay.
because, Trey, you told me about him and said, be ready for him to show up, and I kind of was forgetting about him so much because I'm like, when is he going to come? And then only to a part where I actually got him confused with Ress.
Oh, yeah.
Because they had similar names. So I kind of get that, where you guys developed that character. Because, I mean, if you think about it, he is the latest character in probably plans that you guys had 5-6 years ago. Mm-hmm. Whereas you haven't introduced any other characters so far that haven't been introduced over the past few years that have just popped up back and forth. Characters like, say, Katja, she was probably planned, but she showed up years ago. Even the Way Council, they were created and you guys waited. But that's a character, I mean, from my perspective as a reader and a fan, was told about years and years and years ago,
true.
even to the point where his design was different.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's kind of what I'm getting. And for Least, it's kind of a character that you guys kind of created for a scene that probably didn't need too much develop because he's a character. I guess the best way to describe it might be, even in my own POV, would probably even be Kels. Character that came and has gone.
Yeah,
may not show up again, we don't know, but a character that was pivotal to a scene but then is gone, or even say like Carlton's wife, or a character similar to that, which was part of a story but wasn't really necessary, but needed to be there for the sake of
it. It's like, here's who this person is. They're just here because they would be. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I think that you had very good picks then. Roz is definitely one that we have been talking about for a long time, and he came up in, I think, chapter 13 in the Big Way We Cry Council scene. They mentioned his name, and, that was chapter 13. We're in chapter, I don't even know, 31?
Yeah. It's been a while.
It's been a while. So it's pretty cool that he was one that definitely took a lot of time to show up, and there was a lot of development of his character. Another one that I think has taken a lot of planning time, and has changed a lot since the comic began, and even before the comic started, there were a lot of different ideas about how the Hooded Man would work.
I was about to ask, was it the Hooded Man?
Being sort of this kind of linchpin character, it's very important to be thinking about what, as the story progresses, how does that change how he will react to things, when is he going to show up, and so he's definitely one that a lot of thought and effort has to go into, and has gone into since the start. And then for, I thought your least ones were very good, but another one that just showed up in this chapter would be Felly, one of the other Daunt characters. And Laren would fit into that as well, where he's just sort of like, I'm just going to be here for as long as I need to be here as a plot device, and then see you guys later, good luck.
Probably best example would have been the guy who replaced the engine.
Yeah, Jeff, the other mechanic back in Retran,
I forgot he was there.
It was in 2 pages. So he's probably the best. But he actually though, he had a couple sketches. I sketched that guy a couple times before I put him in the comic.
Yeah.
So
it's funny you mentioned that, not to be part of this, but it's funny about the Hooded Man. It's been so long since you refer to that. The only thing I can identify him now is Outsider.
Oh yeah, well yeah,
because he's probably been called. Title. That's probably been what he's been called more now.
Well, people don't. Anything. I don't think he's ever been referred to as the Hooded Man in the comic.
No, he's only been referred to as the Way. He's either the Way or Client, but he's most commonly probably in the past 4 years.
I think they've called him the Hooded Way before, but yeah. So now that we know that he's called the Outsider, that's what he's called more often.
I always assumed that maybe the least thought about character was the first bartender, and the most thought about character was the second bartender.
Oh, I think you guys, I don't want to jump the gun, but I think you guys have actually planned that out from conceiving, didn't you, of having that character just be this, have that character model be that same character?
I don't know. So he's in the very first chapter, and I don't think when I first drew him, I thought it was just going to be a fun, because it's based on a friend of ours, and I was like, it'll just be a fun little cameo. But then I thought later, when there was another opportunity to have a bartender, I was like, this is going to be a thing.
It's a good video game nod.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially old RPG.
Oh, yeah.
What's great is I think there was more thought into naming the bar than there was in creating.
Yeah, there definitely was.
It's called the Red Baron.
I
keep calling it Red Baron, but it's
the Red Wilson.
The Red Wilson, which had its own story, which has been told, but It is kind of funny that's what I think about. Is probably that bar had more character development than that guy did originally.
Most definitely. It's just like, oh, that's just the bartender.
I think it's interesting too that like one of the characters you said was maybe the least developed was, I can't think of his name now, but the Daunt that
Laren?
Laren, yeah. And for some reason, like of all the characters, I really want a solo story about Laren. Like, because
I like Laren too.
He kind of just comes off as like a lovable doof, but he's not stupid. But like, he kind of just is a bit of like an oaf almost.
Yeah.
And,
Are you seeing like a Big Trouble in Little China-esque thing with Laren?
yeah, and he's just kind of like,
because that's what I thought.
He's like fumbling
He's a truck
through
driver.
it. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah. Just like he just kind of gets into trouble and he doesn't want to be in trouble, but he just keeps getting into trouble.
Yeah.
And like,
So Nextuus is going to go on hiatus for a couple
I would love that.
This is recorded. This is my notebook.
Well, everyone, there is always a story of someone, of everybody having their own story of saving the world. So Laren has his own, which is kind of funny. Since we brought up the bartender, I don't mean to deviate, but after delving into him, knowing him, and us discussing, there's a thing that I kind of wish was different from a previous question. I almost wish you hadn't put that dialogue in of him saying he looks like someone else. And it would have just been a fun gag.
But it was like the only reason that I wrote that in there, like, because I agree, like, it's funnier if it's unspoken.
Mm-hmm.
But the only reason I put it in there is because it had been like 7 years or 8 years since you'd seen that other bartender, and I drew completely differently because I'd been drawing for 7 or 8 years, so it looks different.
I did when I first read. So that the second bar, as soon as I saw that bartender, I was just like, he looks familiar. Was he in the story before? Like I actually thought that, and then you had the dialogue. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there's more than 2 bartenders in Nextuus to Search for the Ocean Shard, and it's not going to be like a recurring thing that it's like, hey, you look like that other guy. Like we mentioned it once, and that's it now. So.
That's if you ever watch Shield, Patton Oswalt's character. It's kind of like that. I think there's just 3 of them, but like they never talk about the fact that they're triplets or anything, and so like they just keep popping up in like different like Shield locations, and they're just kind of like, are you guys clones or something? Top 3 ranking chefs from the cast, and what are their signature dishes?
Oh yes, the fluff questions. I love these. So I did some thinking about this. Like Doodle always comes up with really interesting questions for me to think about where it's like, I've never had to consider that. So I did try and do some thinking about it. So here's my answers, just real quick. I figure I was going to put Dugan in the 3rd spot just because he's a very affable guy. He seems very friendly. Seems like the kind of guy who would entertain, have people over. I think that as far as signature dishes, since it's a sci-fi story and there's crazy alien like food options, I'm not gonna go like super like this is the dish that he makes. But I think that he would probably make like what do they call it? Like,
Ovabo ribs?
No, like casseroles or like home cooking type stuff.
Mm-hmm. So he's a soul food kind of
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, I would say so. I think
Okay.
that's appropriate. In my number 2 spot, I was gonna put Tony because he's kind of the clean perfectionist type character. And he also seems like he's someone who really likes to take care of himself, and I think that he would probably...
Health food.
Yeah, like very, very...
Quinoa. And
like nice salads.
So on
stuff.
Nextuus, is quinoa also an ancient grain?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But more ancient.
Right.
Like ancienter.
super ancient.
Double ancient, they
Okay.
call it. Double plus ancient.
Doppel ancient. Because it's German somehow.
Yeah. And then for my number 1, just for fun, I said Malden. I think Malden would be the best cook because I like to think that even though he's a psychic and a soldier, like that didn't have to be all that he was. And if he wanted to, he could have been a professional chef. And he's really good at cooking. And I don't know what kind of stuff that he would make, but I just like the idea that he would be the best.
My guess for the best chef would have been Eric.
Oh, yeah?
Or how do you pronounce his name?
Arik.
Arik?
Yeah.
You say it.
Whatever. Arik. So, I think it's just because he seems kind of for the same reason you said Dugan was. Maybe just like an affable guy, likes to entertain. Like, I could see him, like, bringing girls back to the house and making
yeah.
and cooking for
Impressing
them
them with-
rather than taking them out to eat.
Yeah.
Like he just seems like that kind of guy to me.
I like that.
And
I
gets like
that.
some attachments for his arm.
Oh man, that's way better.
Egg beaters.
That's awesome.
I would have gone with at least one of those being like Carlton.
Yeah.
I thought about Carlton, but then I was like, I don't know, he's so crotchety. Like, I kind of feel like...
He'd rather go out to eat.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Which he does.
We've only
He does.
seen him go out to eat.
That's
He may
It was
never
his-
go out to eat
it was his
again.
undoing.
That's true. That's
Spoiler,
true.
if you
That-
haven't read this at all.
No spoilers.
I don't know why you're listening to this
Yeah.
if you haven't gotten to that part
No
yet.
spoilers.
Who would you say, man?
Well, for one, I totally disagree with you.
No.
Oh.
Dugan is a fat ass. He lives off macaroni and cheese and canned goods in his one-bedroom apartment with cats. That's what he does.
Who's feeding his cats?
Nobody is. They fend for themselves. They they eat out of the cans that he waves around.
So you based Dugan off of me, right?
Malden, I
No one's
don't
supposed to say
think,
anything.
because he's been in the army forever, he just lives off MREs now. While he may have had
of course.
aspirations, he has nothing now because he just opens pouches
Yeah.
and just scoops out of them.
Are you good with Tony at least? Was that one okay?
Tony makes a lot. Tony's basically my boss, and it makes a lot of sense.
Tony just Tony just looks vegan, but we know he just chisels off crystals and snorts them. So that's how he lives.
Wow.
Alright.
If-
So all of my selections are wrong.
Yes.
See, I can see Katja because of that scene with the blender. Sorry, that was an additional scene.
Right, yeah.
Was that even in the book? Was it in the book?
It was a bonus untitled,
It's on the
Okay.
site. Yeah.
It's on the
Oh, it's
site.
on the site.
which makes me laugh about that. The callback to
No more words.
no more words.
Is that a blender?
Which reminds me of another joke Tom and I were going to do with Laren when he says, "I'm going to turn off." He has his earmuffs on, and he says he's going to turn it on. Me and Tom made jokes about having dialogue about who was it, Arik and Ellie talking about murdering Laren, but he only says that he's turning it on, but he actually is just flipping a switch that does nothing just so he can act like he's zoning them out. But in reality, we were going to edit dialogue about how they were actually thinking about killing Laren, and he was just going to look
Because he
shocked.
kind of looks over his shoulder at him, doesn't he?
Well, I did do a chapter like bonus after that scene of him saying that he did that, but then it's just Elle and Arik talking about. They were just talking about how they thought that 115 would like totally like clobber. I don't remember exactly. It's been a long time since I've looked.
You know, working off of that thing where like Laren looks over his shoulder at the two. I always, like, I wonder if they can smell it yet.
Yeah, everybody just right next to us for me.
Piggybacking off of what Trey just said,
You mean poop caboose?
what does a donk fart smell like? Oh god.
I don't know why, but I always want to say fish.
You know,
Fish?
Yeah, fish.
You know what I think it is like, have you ever had Cheerios? And then you have really bad Cheerio breath. You know what I'm talking about? You've got a baby who eats Cheerios
I
sometimes.
do. And he does.
Even then, it's not even like Cheerio bread. It's just they just smell bad.
Well, but Cheerios on top of it, like
Yeah.
Cheerios coming up from your stomach, it's a bad. It's a bad.
Yeah.
It's a bad.
No, yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
I like how it
I-
seems
I
like
got
you've
off
actually
the rails.
thought about this.
It is his world.
let's come
You
on,
gotta
man.
think about everything.
Yeah, I'm immersed in it, man. Cheerios and all.
Same from Doodle Bop Bop. His final question. I know there are groups on DeviantArt where you can tag comics you make and things, but would you ever consider making a kind of comic club? We kind of have that, not on DeviantArt, but on Facebook. We've made comic creator groups.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that, I love the idea of comic community stuff.
Obviously, that's why we're all sitting in this room.
Oh, yeah. And you know, like, a long time ago, 515 Comics, like, that was the idea of that website for a long time, was to be, like, a comic group and a comic community. And I know that I think that there are a lot of communities on DeviantArt and other sites already that kind of do that. As far as, like, would I like to do one of those? I think it would be a lot of fun, but it's one of those things where it's like, I have to think about how much time I would actually be able to dedicate to it. I already try and participate in some groups on DeviantArt and try and do other groups, and like on Facebook and stuff too, like interact with other communities. But it's something where it's like I don't know that I would want to start and like be in charge of one. But I think one of the things that she was talking about, her question goes on, but one of the things she was talking about was like having a group of people where like there can be like monthly goals or challenges to meet, or just like a place where you can go and get like constant feedback. And honestly, that's what I see all of DeviantArt as.
It kind of is. I mean, people, you go to a comment section and people are just saying, hey, can I commission you this? Hey, can I do this? Hey, can I use this design and contribute to this? Can I do this? You connect with people there and you get feedback there. And like people do the same thing on Tumblr, people do the same thing on Facebook, where it's just, I mean, that's their social media platforms. That's the definition of social media. But that's the definition of community. Right. But again, as far as like me actually like creating a group like that, I don't know that it's something that I would like to do any more than I already have. I like taking part in them when I can, but I don't think it's something that I could like run and manage. But I'm always happy to interact with people on any of the places that I already am. So you're already all over the place. Yeah, so, it's all good.
From Poner Oponers on DeviantArt, what are the differences between self-publishing, printing books, versus having another company or service do it for you?
So, for starters, I just want to say I did not pursue having another company or service publish my works, so I don't know a lot about that aspect of publishing.
We kind of do.
I've interviewed a couple of people about that, and basically it's the difference between making like 70% or more and making 20% or less.
Sure.
Yeah. It falls down to ownership and partnership.
Yeah, and if you get if you get a deal with a publisher, you may or may not own the rights to your book anymore, and you get paid squat.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. That's why we're in an age of heavy creator-owned content, even in comics, even in literature, even in shows, YouTube alone.
Oh, yeah.
We're in a big age of creator-owned. Do a lot of them fail? Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. More than the company-owned stuff would. But, the biggest thing that falls into it is, do you want to own what you create and fail on your own? Or do you want to sell out and let your creative control disappear in certain aspects?
And that being said, like the whole purpose of going to a publisher is because they have a bigger microphone than you do, essentially.
They have a bigger microphone and more money to do with what you want to do.
And the interesting thing, so especially like I'm doing a podcast now where we're reviewing Image comics. A lot of the comics that we're reading there are done by Marvel writers, DC writers, and artists and illustrators, and so they're going from those big publishers over to which Image is creator owned. So that is a good publisher to maybe go through. I know I think Aftershock Comics is like the new Fancy Pants one that just started this year. Mm-hmm. That's very creator owned. Like Phil Hester, I know has a comic over there, and I mean a ton of those big name writers and stuff have moved over to creator owned things. At the same time, they're sticking with a lot of those bigger publishers because it's probably a lot of fun to write for X-Men and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's a different story than maybe this question.
Well, yeah.
And that's not to say that you have, even being creator-owned, you don't have complete control.
Yeah.
Like,
it depends on your contract.
One of the most, I think it's probably easy to say, one of the most successful creator-owned writers is Robert Kirkman. And he's failed most of his career in his comics. But the biggest thing is, all of his comics that have been canceled wasn't him canceling them. Mm-hmm. It was Image canceling them.
Oh,
it is him creating a comic, him having it, but they also are going to be printing his own stuff.
Yeah.
And when that kind of thing happens, if you've got this story to tell and it's not selling, they will tell you, we're not printing it anymore. Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest problem also with being a creator. So, I mean, you yourself have an advantage when you are publishing your own stuff.
Right.
You are putting your own dime into your creation.
So going off that then too is like when you do make a contract, make sure you keep the rights so that if they do cancel it, it reverts back to you owning the rights.
Right.
So
and then you can carry on doing
it.
stuff yourself.
Which I've met a number of people who have done that. And that's really cool. And
But that's for another podcast.
That's for another.
yeah.
So yeah, I guess.
Yay, tangents!
Yeah, I guess my only other thoughts, just for my own experience, is just that the reason I only really pursued self-publishing and self-printing was just because I could have more control over it myself. I could make all the decisions, and I kind of have a problem with control and giving it up.
Well,
so it worked really. It was very attractive to
and
me.
you do a very small press run when you do a run, so
Yeah.
it's affordable for you.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Is I want to have full control over what I'm doing, and I only have so much money with which to do it.
I guess the better question to reiterate here is I'm going to take this question, I'm going to reword it. If you were offered by a company to publish Nextuus, you still have creative control. You and Trey are still sole creators of it. You still do it all. But a company is offering to for a profit, but they are going to shell out the publications of it. Would you consider that an option?
Yeah, for sure.
Sell out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, the thing is, you know, the one goal that I have to keep in mind, and that I do everything for, is that I want to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone wants to help me tell a story and make a little money off of my story as well, all right, let's do it.
As long as you two are benefiting.
Yeah, I
from
mean,
that factor.
I want to make sure that it's still the story that I want to tell, and I want to make sure that it's still my story. But yeah, I would not turn that down. It'd definitely be something I'd have to look at very carefully. But yeah, no, that sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, if there is anybody listening.
Well,
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more.
this question is, how do you get your books and how do you get your stories on a bookstore shelves or just to be sold in general? Real quickly, if you guys want to, right? Like, I think that one of the biggest things is, obviously, you go to conventions, we sell it, but it is available in stores. What do you do for that?
I go to the store and I talk to the person, and it's nerve-wracking, and I hate it every time, but it's not hard, and it's actually not that scary once you're doing it. But you just got to go in and say, hey, I produced this book. I usually hit up, like, Midwest stores, and I'm like, hey, I'm a Midwest author, or hey, I'm a local author if I'm at a store in Iowa, and I say, I've made these books, and I'd like you to stock them in your store, or I'd like to know if you're interested in stocking them in your store, or I'd love to have them stocked in your store. Like however it falls out of my mouth when I'm there stammering in front of them. But yeah, you just go and ask. Even big chain stores, you can just go in and ask. A lot of big chain stores will have like local author areas, and they like getting different stuff there. So the different stores will handle it differently. I've had places that just will buy the books from me. I've had places that will offer to buy them on consignment, and still other places just like come up with like a quick contract and we figure something out. Like, but yeah, you just go and ask. That's it.
Cool. Question number 3. Which character in Nextuus is considered the most dangerous or lethal? I'm pretty sure that's how it was written.
Yeah. That's good. So I have a thought for this, but I was really curious what you guys thought.
Let's hear.
Yeah.
Once again,
Dexter and Matty's
Eric. Yeah.
maybe not.
half robot samurai.
You can go.
I think I always just assumed. I forgot his name. I'm horrible with the name. Is it Tony?
It's okay. Oh, Tony. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like he
Nick
kind
Psycher.
of he strikes me as like a Gambit kind of character, Gambit from the X-Men, where like you don't ever really know the depth of his power, and you're just kind of waiting for him to blow the planet up.
Yeah.
Right on.
That's just the vibe I get from him. That being said, too, like I don't know. I have an affinity for 115, and I'd like to think he could get himself out of any situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to say though, like if he would end up killing anybody, if it was some sort of like a lethal fight. But I feel like he could always get out. But I think definitely Tony.
Okay. Cool. What do you think, Matty?
When I think of dangerous lethal, I think of the whole picture. My idea instantly doesn't go to a character who has shown to be lethal. It's, for me, the way I've always looked at it, and it's just me guessing, but it's also the way I feel is with lethal death, it's either the outsider or Ketchup.
Mm-hmm.
She's restrained. Even restrained, we've seen how extremely dangerous she is.
Very
But
true.
we also see that while psychically she's extremely dangerously lethal, I also have to look and say, well, there's the outsider. He is kind of the villain of it, and he's also the guy who is controlling everything in a certain thing. He is not in the sense puppeteering everything with strings, but this entire thing is created by him for a purpose.
Yeah. Well,
And when I look at someone like him, that's kind of what I look and go, there has not been a payoff for him just yet, but so many things have happened because of him. And while a physical threat or something would be up there, it is also kind of scary to think that a lot of this misfortune and stuff have come just for him employing this. And there's been just damage.
Yeah.
There's been damage. There has been near death. I mean, there is a guy in there who has some weird connection to him who is physically dying. His body is changing and he is dying, essentially. We don't know, but we know that what has been done to him has killed everybody.
Yeah.
And we've also seen that he's had the most unfortunate luck about all of it. So when I think of a danger, I think of him. And when I think of a lethalness, I do also see Katja. Because we got to see about, 3 or 4 chapters ago, just what she can do.
Yeah.
Even when she is also physically damaging herself with it.
I think it's interesting too, saying the outsider. I don't think I necessarily thought of him just because we haven't seen him do a lot.
No.
But the whole thing that he's against the council.
Yeah.
But
And he's a threat. They see him as a
and
big
so
threat.
you would think if he was a legitimate threat that they would have tried to kill him by now, or
Right.
deal with him in some way, but clearly haven't been able to.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting that. Isn't it?
I mean, to a point where more and more members of the Way Council are stepping in. As the story is progressing, we have seen one Way who was assigned to do this, only for the person he reports to also be stepping into this. But we've also seen that there are a couple other Ways who are also being forced to step in to deal with this situation because whatever is going on, they know it's not good.
Right. They gotta stop it,
Yeah, right now we know that Dairo is having to step in, even though he shouldn't be, but he has to. We've seen the female council member, Birena, now that she is being forced to step in, while not her personally, she is sending her own
she's acting.
soldier. She's going to have to. We've seen Malden being forced to step in out of, I guess, probably be regulations or anything, that he has been forced to step in as well. So, in this bigger picture, we have seen these people in the back who are involved in this, that they are now being forced because they are essentially sending, like Dairo has been sending his Nixon guys in, and they have been failing, not based on their own faults. If it wasn't for things like Katja stepping in or something like that, they probably would have seen, because they are, even though, we've made stories saying they're a joke and things like that, we've made stories saying they are reckless, and they are, but they aren't effective people. Yeah. If they weren't, RJ's father aside, the connection's right there, they are where they are because of their performance, because they are good at their job. Because at the end of the day, if they're not good, they wouldn't be part of this.
Right.
But they are. And so we have seen all these circumstances come, and while it looks like, and by their own point of view and perspective, they have been failing. To a point where they even consider themselves failing. To the point where one character wants to quit and not be part of this anymore because he's so fed up. He's a hothead, he's reckless, but he's effective at what he does. And we've seen these guys fail. We have seen the NPDF fail. We've seen everyone fail trying to stop this, and it's because there have been certain interferences that have led to these big, kind of, I guess I'd say, game changers having to come forward and intervene with this, and they are still failing at this. They are still trying to be 10 steps ahead, but they're getting pushed 5 steps behind. That's my own personal point of view.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
Is the answer Dugan?
The answer is Laren, actually. All answers are wrong.
I wouldn't doubt it. Some sort of Daunt way.
He's the Jesus version of
He is the outsider.
That's why he's so nice.
No, that's great. Trey, did you have any insight or anything that you wanted to say?
As long as we don't try and have you guys try and spoil anything.
No.
Because you guys are the creators.
No, I was gonna answer just who I thought that the people of Nextuus, if confronted with this person, who would they think is probably, who is considered the most lethal or dangerous person? And yeah, that's kind of how I was going to approach the question, and not like who is actually. So I guess my answer would probably be pretty much anyone in the Nix. Like, just because knowing, like, if you were a person living on Nextuus, if you were confronted with...
Those are the guys to fear.
Yeah,
those are definitely the guys to be afraid of.
It's like the mob cornering you. Like, oh, great. So I either have to do exactly what you say, or I just die. Like, that sucks. So I feel like, that's kind of a cheap answer. But I would say that probably just the Nix as an organization is considered to be the most lethal or deadly.
They're assholes with licenses to kill.
Aside from maybe the Daunts, although the Daunts don't have a huge presence on the planet anymore, and so aren't really.
Well, and they almost don't seem to care.
They don't.
From
it's all. It looks like it's kind of like robot stuff. It's all numbers.
Yeah.
Well, and
it's all numbers and resources.
They only care about the other, like how they're going to be treated by the other Daunts if they help these humans, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Are they humans?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're people.
Fair question. Yeah, they're people. They're humans. Trey, do you have a different insight on that? Or?
And the idea of, like, if there was a death battle, who would probably come out on top? Just from what we've seen in the comic, and not what I personally know, story-wise, I would give it to Roz. He put the hurt on as a call real bad and really easily.
Wow. I wouldn't say it took a whole chapter. I don't say easily. Ezekall's not a pushover.
Well, no, he's not. But I mean, them chains, man, them chains.
But he did walk away basically unscathed. And plus a motorcycle.
So let's say the purge happens.
Okay.
I think the bartender.
Honestly, because the bartender would just have like a
he's gonna duck behind
automatic shotgun behind the counter.
He's gonna duck behind the counter the whole time, and then at the very end, pop up behind whoever's left and just blast them.
Yeah,
that's right. All right. Well, we've summarily executed that question.
The bartender.
I think so. And it's the bartender. That's the right answer. All of our answers.
And they'll team up. They'll team up.
Oh yeah.
The bartenders.
All the bartenders will team up.
It's like multi-man.
Clone army. Here's the next question. How do you determine the way you set up panels and speech bubbles in a comic?
So I'm going to answer this in my comic because I don't know how people do it in other comics. For me, I pretty much just lay them out. Like, anymore, I try and look at the last page and make sure that my panel layout is not going to be exactly the same as the page I just did, because it's very easy to get into the habit of, okay, big first panel in the upper left, and then smaller panel in the upper right, and then like big panel across the middle, and little panel in the lower right. Like, I mean, it's really easy to like fall into patterns, and a lot of my pages do have very similar layouts if you were to look at like thumbnails of them. But I try and just like look back a couple pages and make sure that I'm not doing like the exact same thing with panels. So that's just one thing that I do, is I kind of try and make sure that I'm at least changing it up a little bit. And other than that, like, I pick panel size just based on what all do I need to get in this shot. What do I think it'll look cool if I have like one bigger shot? Like, if it's a big long conversation, how can I break this up so that it's not just two heads looking at each other talking back and forth? And I try and break up like dialogue and the bubbles and stuff so that there's kind of a complete thought for each panel, and definitely a complete thought for each page, unless I'm like purposefully trying to cliffhanger a little bit. So I don't write out my scripts with like panels in mind, or like what all is going to be on one page. So I just kind of pick it as I go. And as far as like the layout for panels and stuff, I just try, or for dialogue, I just try and make it so that it's logical for the eye to follow. Same with panels. Just, does it make sense that, is this the most prominent one that you would look at first, and then what makes the best sense for eye flow? There's probably a lot of really good resources, and I have like the Scott McCloud books of like inventing comics, reading comics, making comics, and I've not read them. I have them, and I'm sure they'd be very good resources for anybody interested.
Marvel has Making Comics the Marvel Way. There's like a shirt. I know Stan Lee has his name on one. And DC has a series, like a whole series, I know, on just writing, illustrating, lettering even.
It'd be lovely if they followed their own books.
It would be.
I think the biggest thing that I know you and I have dealt with our own content is after you do so, I know yours is different now, but you and I have talked about this since we've known each other. One of the hardest things is you don't pay attention to three-quarter
Oh,
turns.
yeah.
Three-quarter turns is the easiest thing to do.
It's so
it's
easy.
also lazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not intentionally lazy. You just don't notice that you're doing it.
Can you explain what you're talking about?
It's like this. Like, when you're not looking...
Yeah, show us.
I guess the best way to say it, there is profile view, and what's the other
And
one?
front on.
And front on view. Three-quarter turns is right in the middle.
Okay, so they're not looking at the camera. They're not looking perpendicular to the camera. They're looking at
it is showing
45-degree angle.
it's showing three-quarters of the face. It is. I mean, even most comics are like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the easiest way to make a page,
Yeah.
but after so long,
Well, yeah,
you start noticing it, and you're like, I am being very repetitive.
Yeah, if you have a lot of dialogue, it's really easy to fall into the trap of just like this guy from this angle, and then this guy from this angle, and then this guy from the same angle again, and so basically, I just like when I read other comics, if I see something I don't like, I just try really hard to avoid doing things like that in my comic.
This kind of brought to mind, and I was looking through just your archive list, and noticing that you don't do 2-page splashes very often.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that?
Initially, like the first one that we did that actually Trey drew in chapter 5.
It was in the final chapter.
Yeah,
of the first
chapter
book.
5. That one was pretty much just like, this would be kind of cool. Like, it was just kind of a lark. Like, you weren't the co-writer yet or anything. It was just like, I didn't know if I was going to have...
Was
like
that the Daunt Army?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was the flashback.
Giant. It looked like
The Carthan War.
like a still shot from a movie.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a very good picture. Mm-hmm. It still holds up very well, even though it's almost 10 years old now.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah. But I don't do a lot of those, mostly because I feel like...
You get worried about page layouts when you're going to put it in a book.
Well, I do now.
Yeah, I was going to say... Is that one
Initially, that was not the reason, but now it's like, oh, I got to think about making sure these get next to each other, like facing pages.
And when you put one page out at a time, it's hard to read.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding, because you do both at the same time.
I do both at the same time. I guess I don't always do it just because I feel like if I did it a lot, like if I did one each chapter or every time there was an action scene, I feel like it might... Like, I just don't know. It's funny, like, because there's more room, so you should be able to do a lot more with it. Mm-hmm. But the problem that I have with those, and this would be easily solved if I just changed how I did this, but let me tell you why I don't do it. And be honest, because I'm talking to the internet. I draw...
They'll know.
Yeah, they'll know. I draw 1-to-1, so I draw on an 8x10 piece of paper, and it becomes an 8x10 comic. And when I do a 2-page spread, I just turn an 8.5x11 sheet to the side and do it that way. So I'm not actually working with more space. Okay. And so it doesn't feel like I actually am a lot freer to do things differently. It's fun for when there's some really like cool, impactful like scene of like something that we've never seen before in the comic. So like when Katja like went a little unbound and like was using her big, magic fist spell and like,
or even the even the scene with Katja where she fights Roy.
Yeah,
like,
with grabbing the sword.
Yes.
Like really like cool key moments. I think that's really fun to like add. And there was a dream sequence where it's like that's a great place to do one. Flashbacks, those are great places to work it in because it's like it's kind of outside of the normal narrative of the story, and so it's okay that it's different, and it can be more sparse. And that's another thing, is that because I'm not working with a really big draw space, I can't put a lot more into the 2-page spread unless I actually drew it on 2 pages. A lot of times it's just, I only want to do it when it's going to be something that doesn't require there to be a lot of dialogue, or there's not a lot of panels. Yeah. So yeah, it just doesn't come up that often. And yeah, now I kind of avoid them just because it's like, one a book is probably good. Although the way I number the pages now, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. It really doesn't matter anymore. Like when I was first doing the books, it was really kind of scary of like, oh crap, like because I got to make sure that I get it right, because if I screw up this one, it's like 100 pages in, and then I'll have to change everything. Like, which thankfully I got it right. But now I do it so that it's just chapter by chapter. I kind of start over which way the pages are laid out, so it wouldn't matter. Anyway, That's
That
technical.
it kind of made me think of another question based on that last question and even an earlier one where since you don't panel it out when you're writing it and you get to that paneling phase, have you ever had to rewrite to get it to fit onto the page better or?
Maybe once or twice, but
Okay.
mostly anymore what I've been trying to do, like what I used to do is just have fewer panels.
Okay.
So you'll see, especially in some of the earlier pages, that there's a lot of pages where there's just 3 panels.
Okay.
And it's like, I guess that's all that's going on that page then. And I say this like the page that's gonna come out tomorrow, like not when this releases, but the page that comes out tomorrow, like page, I don't know what number it is, doesn't matter. That one is only 3 panels, but it's because it's the end of a scene, and it's like, I can't add anything else, and I think it sort of works as punctuation for this scene, that it's a little more Spartan. But anymore, if I run into that problem of like, ooh, I can't quite get a complete thought in 4 panels or 5 panels, I'll just put more in. So I'll do 5 or 6 panels instead of 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Or I'll just have more, like usually people only say one thing in a panel in my comic, which the more I look at other comics, the more I realize that is not usually how comics work. People will usually have an entire conversation in one panel, or at least it's not uncommon. And so I'm trying to do that a little bit more when I feel like, oh man, I can't quite get a complete thought. Well, just combine the text into one panel. Like, can I just draw it in a way that it looks like it's not boring to just read it all on this one scene. So anyway.
Mm-hmm.
To follow up to that question, what is the process in editing a story, as in cleaning it up for release or sprucing up your writing?
So the editing process that we use for Nextuus is pretty much, I will write out a chapter of the story, and then Trey and I will go over it together and make sure that it works well with the rest of the story, that it sounds good on its own, that the characters have voice. So a lot of the editing just happens straight away before any pages are drawn. Then when I'm actually going to print it for a book, like sprucing it up for release, like you say, that's something that Trey will look over it all again when I get a proof copy, and also I've got a handful of other people who will just go through and read. And that is more for, like Trey and I talk a lot about word choice and grammar and punctuation use, but neither of us is a professional editor, and neither are the other people who check it, but they're people who are very technically minded, and so that's basically the editing process, is just letting other people read it. And it's great, I think, to have people, like, it's great to have Trey read a chapter after I've written it, because when I read it, I already know what I was trying to get at, so I'll miss stuff. And it's great to have people other than Trey and I read the book once it comes out, because we know the book already, we know the comics already, so we already kind of know what to expect. So we miss a lot of those key little grammatical errors. And gosh, I don't know how to use commas, because every time I put a book out, like the people who edit
Post-it
it are
notes
just
are
like,
just commas,
you
commas, commas.
don't need this comma, you don't need this comma, put a comic here. Like, okay, all right, cool. Don't know how to use commas, great, whatever.
English class failed me.
No, that's one of the biggest problems with comics in general. Bold, italics, and commas.
I don't like comics that use bold too
Because
much.
most don't know how to use them.
It's very frustrating. It's
They're-
like, I feel like this person's shouting at me.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem with bold. People use it in that way, but it's 100% just for emphasis.
Yeah.
How many more chapters are planned for Nextuus? Will there be consideration for another comic series after it's been wrapped up?
Yeah. So,
And we leave it at that.
and we leave it at that. Yeah, actually, so I don't know how many more chapters of Nextuus there's going to be. I'm going to level with y'all. I don't know. There's more.
It's
This-
evolved to a point where it's like, when it ends, you'll know because it'll start concluding,
Yeah.
essentially.
The story ends when it ends.
Yeah,
I
period.
bet it ends when they start looking for that ocean show.
Yeah, you know, you might be on something there.
found it, guys.
I looked at that.
Here you go, Hoodin' Man.
It's done.
Where's my money?
Done found it. That's my voice for Randall, by the way. Hey, guys.
Oh,
I'm really lucky.
that is nothing like what I have picked for The cast list.
Darn burn it.
So, how many more chapters? You don't know.
So I don't know how many more chapters there are. It will just end when it ends. It does have an end. We are working towards that. And I don't even like giving out fractions anymore of like how far through the story I think we are. I always like to say that I think 50 would be nice, but like we mentioned before, I liked saying 30 was nice when we were starting out. So who knows? We'll see. But as far as am I considering other things after the comic has been wrapped up? Yes, a lot more since we did the last one of these. Because someone asked pretty much the same question, and I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll do more Nextuus stuff. I definitely want to do more Nextuus stuff. Like, if I was done with Nextuus: The Search for the Ocean Shard this week, I would immediately start working on writing offshoot stories or other stories set in the same Nextuus universe. I want to do more Nextuus stuff. So, as of this point, that's what I want to do.
Assuming that you're not going to kill off everybody, would it involve the same characters?
You know, I don't know. There's definitely some... I'm purposely leaving some things open in the comic so that it's like, I could explore something with this character, or I could do something with this character. I think it would be fun to even do, like, I don't want to do a lot of, like prequel stuff, because that's hard. Yeah. It's hard to make sure that things link up the way that they're supposed to. But, like talking about doing, like, small episodic stories, like, I think it would be super fun to do some of the adventures of Lockheed and Co. before the Search for the Ocean Shard, like when they were famous treasure hunters.
Right. I think like the Ramos Emerald.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do some more of that kind of stuff.
That's the story that you keep bringing up, the Ramos Emerald.
That's because it's the one.
Yeah.
It's the one other story. But yeah, I'd also really like to explore just completely unrelated characters, completely unrelated ideas. I'd love to do more stuff with Daunts. I'd love to do more stuff with Ways, because in this comic, they're important, but they're not the focus, really. I mean, the Ways kind of are, but we don't get to see as much from their perspective since they're not the main cast. And so there's just a lot of, like, cool elements that I would love to play around with more that we've touched on, but may not really get to explore fully in the comic. So yeah, I want to do that.
What are the pros and cons of being full-time as a creator?
Well, I can tell you right now that I'm not full-time as a creator.
Okay. That's what I was kind of wondering when I first this question. I was kind of like, well, you're not.
Yeah,
you have a day job.
A lot of people, like at cons, I get that a lot of, like, especially when I tell people, like, that I do 3 pages a week and there's over 900 pages or whatever. They're like, oh, wow, that's cool. So, like, this is your job? No, absolutely not. It's not my job.
Crazy person.
I'm just a crazy person. I can tell you what I think it would be like.
It would be. I know what it would be like too. You would have the same pitch, but at the end of it, you would go, "Oh yeah, and if you feel like, visit my Patreon."
Yeah.
Well, because that's how I need my bills paid.
So I think that's one of the major cons of being a full-time creator is that the money is not as, having a regular full-time job like I do. My money is set. So it's like, I know that I'm making enough that I'll be able to, like, eat and, pay for shelter. And as a full-time creator, you have to set that up. And you have to make sure that you're making enough for all those horrible adult things like paying for insurance and things like that, which is harder when you're not working regular hours or pulling down a regular paycheck.
Well, that's even a thing that goes down to even comics in the main industry. Dexter and I know this, that you don't even make ends meet. A lot of content creators, a lot of artists, this is not their full-time job.
Oh,
the
sure.
ones that have contracts, the exclusives, yeah, they get paid a lot for not making comics because they're that hyped up that they're delaying all the time. But one of my favorite artists, Casey Collar, he is a merchandising coordinator for Yankee Candle.
Yeah.
And yes, I listened to a podcast with him, and he was asked, what does he do? And he said, I am a merchandising coordinator for Yankee Candle. He goes to Bed Bath & Beyonds and malls and sets up Yankee Candle displays.
Yeah.
And when he gets offered a job from a company to do a comic, he has to take a leave of absence from his job, but he also has a child and is married and has to go through things of, can he take a leave of absence from his position for a couple weeks, for maybe a month or two, just to do a comic book?
Yeah.
And
that is a thing. I mean, that is one thing that I know, we growing up, we've heard those things of comic artists and stuff saying, this does not put food on the table.
Yeah.
This does not. I have a full-time job on the side of this.
I don't know how many GoFundMe accounts I've seen where,
that's the
where
thing.
an illustrator like broke their hand and they can't do
Oh,
their
sure.
job.
Broke their hand or done something. But
Yeah.
even to a point where it's not even, I made a joke at the beginning about Patreon, but that's kind of where we live now, where people have GoFundMe, where they have Patrons, where they have Kickstarters, just to make something.
Oh yeah, and people will like stream drawing and stuff like that too, and like accept donations. And I think that a big pro of being able to be a full-time creator would be that like I would treat it like a job. Like I would get up, I would spend more time on every page, or I would put out more pages, or I would be putting out extra content on the side. Like, I mean, if you don't have another job, if you're a full-time creator, then you can really focus more of your time. And that sounds really nice, but I feel like there's pros and cons to that too, because you have to have a lot more discipline if you're the boss. But I also feel like it would be easier to be disciplined if it's like, if I don't keep up on this, I don't eat. I think that it would be, like, for someone like me, who's not really looking to, like, get a gig, like, if I could just make money doing Nextuus myself the way that I am now, I probably would. But there's so many things to consider of, like, okay, it's not just I have to replace my income, I also have to replace the deal that I get on insurance with my job, and like, so there's a lot of other, and like, oh, I wouldn't have vacation time, I would just not work sometimes. So there's lots of different things to consider that I think, again, it's sort of two sides of the same coin. I think that you can look at things in both a positive and negative light. So
Well, and I think too, especially with, I feel like the way it appears to me, the way that you do it is it's just a hobby. Whereas, like, some people sink money into skateboards and stuff like that. You're putting money into this passion of yours, and so it's a hobby that gives you a reason to get to go to cons and talk to people.
yeah, and that's I've gone back and forth, like, in the past years of, like, is this something that I want to be my sole source of income, or is it something that I'm just happy to do in whatever way that I'm doing it? And I've pretty much settled right now. I mean, times change and people change, but I've pretty much settled right now that it makes me happy to do it the way that I'm doing it right now. Okay. And I would love to be making more money, and I think it would be really cool if someday it was something that could potentially be my sole source of income, but I'm not moving towards that because I'm happy. So I like my setup currently. So and call it a hobby, call it a passion. That's just what I do, and I like it.
Passion hobby.
Passion hobby. It's a passion hobby.
Hobby.
Passion.
So, moving on to the next question, maybe. When sharing your work on the World Wide Web, is it better to have your own domain or publish work through other sites?
Did you add an H to every single one of those W's?
He sure did.
What are you talking about?
Don't make me whip you in the face.
So this is something that actually, this reminded me of, I think you showed me a video, or we were listening to a podcast or something with Bernie Burns and some of the other Rooster Teeth guys.
That always said yes.
They're big on, like, if you want to do something on the internet, get a domain.
Yes.
So you got something to direct people to. And I held on to that. I think that that's very true.
No, I still do too.
Yeah, I think, though, it's great to have a presence. So, like, the question is, like, should you have a website or should you post other places? The answer is yes.
Yes on all.
Yeah.
Yes on all. Always have a website, even if you get a domain. I mean, if you have to, if you want to use YouTube, if you want to use Facebook, if you want to use DR, but at least get a domain that redirects.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always get something to redirect.
So
always
that you
have a website.
you can tell someone, like, I love being able to tell people, just go to 515comics.com or just go to nextuus.com instead of, like, oh yeah, just search for Nextuus on Facebook. Yeah, good luck. Like, no, people aren't going to do that. And if you're going to a convention or if you're trying to, like, make a business connection with someone, I just feel like it's much more impressive to not have michaeldreamer.deviantart.com on my card. Although it is on my card now.
Well, it's not your sole.
But it's not my sole thing. It's not my sole domain. I think it's good to have a core website, and also I feel like that way you can brand whatever it is that you're producing the way that you actually want. Because if you use other websites, there's some customization sometimes, but a lot of times there's not. You don't have a lot of control about how people are going to actually see your work.
What I was going to say, I guess, and kind of answering that, so like if you're using DeviantArt, it's you're limiting what you can do if you're using that as your website, because all you can do, and I'm not super familiar with DeviantArt, but from what I understand, you're posting images.
It's a blog
and
too.
There's comments and blogs.
It's a blog.
But, so as a person who works in marketing, you want to have a domain and a website that is yours to control and do whatever you want, because what you want to do is you want to have a call to action for everything that you put out. And your call to action is always to go back to your website, because your website houses everything that is your brand. So if you make I have my podcast, IndieComic.Ninja. I don't tell people to go to libsyn.com to listen to my podcast, because my website has a link to my shop where you can buy my shirts. Libsyn does not.
Right.
DeviantArt does not. Facebook actually does too, but it's hidden in Facebook's design scheme. Whereas on my website, I can highlight what I want
They
to
choose
highlight.
how to lay out your stuff, whereas on your own website, you can choose.
You also have control of your own website.
Exactly.
You do not. Well, you can. You do not have control of
if DeviantArt,
other things around DeviantArt.
Yeah.
You're gonna get ads.
Something that's popping in my head too is like websites can get technical and difficult for people.
They do, yes.
So like easy places to do websites, just off the top of my head, would be Tumblr, I suppose, is free. You can also do like Wix.com, Weebly.com. You can make free websites. They're going to have ads for that service. I guess another one would be WordPress, but I know you need to WordPress. You might have to pay for to.
Yeah, you pay for WordPress.
You can always forward to it with your domain, but have it actually be the domain and not WordPress whatever.
Yeah.
But still, you can at least forward to it, and you have complete control if you're not hosting it. Because then, so a domain is usually about $12 if you're not getting a coupon, and then a hosting can range from like $1 a month for something cheap and crappy that I don't recommend to $100 a year for something decent.
yeah. So
or free using those other things I just said.
How do you make room for own projects on when you have a job or other responsibilities? What are some of the ways you reach deadlines? In other words, your goal is 3 updates a week. Your goal is coming up to wanting to put a book out annually. Right now it's been every 2 years or so, but I know you want to do a book annually.
I didn't know you said that.
Oh, didn't you? I guess we've discussed it.
Yeah.
I guess one example I might want to throw your way that you've shown is your Tomcast.
Yeah.
You have broadcasted goals on there.
So that's a big thing. Like, I mean, a big theme that I have adopted in the past years is discipline over motivation. Motivation is cool and it can get you started, but if you want to work on a project, if you want to accomplish things and get stuff done and keep working on it, you have to have discipline. That's the most important thing, I believe. One of the things that I do to help with that is the Tomcast. Every week I'll make a video where I talk about stuff that I want to try and get done, and I try and set goals and push myself to get more and more done. And the theme of the show is I don't want to lie to the internet. So if I make promises to the internet, I have to keep them. So that really helps me. I think stating what your goals are, like on all of my banners and anytime I do online advertising, Nextuus, it says updates Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So again, same kind of thing, accountability. Like, I want my word to mean something. I want to have consistency, because I think that that's one of the things that makes a webcomic good, is having that kind of consistency. If I said updates a couple times a month, or updates when I feel like it, then who cares about reading my comic? Because they're like, oh, well then I guess I don't care when I'm going to come check your page, because there may or may not be anything new there.
No, it's consistency is key to wanting to do web comics.
Well, and I know for me, even just with my podcast, like I have to say first Tuesday of the month, or else it's not coming out.
Yeah. How to make room to work on projects? I mean, again, it's discipline and deciding to dedicate time to whatever it is that you're trying to get done. You don't get to make more time. There isn't more time. It's just there's less. You do less, and you focus on the things that you want to get done. And that sounds so brutal saying it that way, but that's what it is. If you're late to work every day, leave earlier. Sometimes it's a simple answer. Like, it's you need more time to work on projects, do less other stuff.
If you really want to figure out how to find time, like bits of time to really work on things, pretend you have a child.
And if you don't, go get one.
Because that's how I found all my pockets of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't pretend.
Yeah, no, I bet, man.
I kind of hate Dexter before, who didn't have a kid, because I don't know what he was doing, but he was not doing anything.
He had more time with friends.
It's actually kind of accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you done with that question?
Did I
just shoot that question down?
No, that's fine.
Well, Trey, you're part of the story process. Would you mind answering that too? Like, even in your own personal projects that you have, just to give a sense of, you know, both sides, even as a comic creator, but also even in your own spare time when you have projects or something. What do you do? Do you try to set goals, or do you just kind of like wonder, oh, I'm gonna try and get this done, but if I can't, I mean, my biggest thing is, at the end of the day, when it comes to something like that, but when it comes to personal things, my always thing is, well, who am I trying to impress other than myself? And who am I trying to, or is it, yeah, I know, it's a bad mentality, but it also comes
Who cares?
It even comes to, like, say, self-satisfaction.
Yeah, sure. I would say probably the thing that I've found that helps me get stuff done is if you start something, finish it.
Finish it.
Use the combo.
And this can be applied to anything, like if it's just, I've really got to clean my room, or I've really got to do laundry, or I've really got to pay X amount of bills, or whatever. Just get it done.
Because that also goes with, if you want to do
Or if you want to do a comic, or
don't
like,
leave it hanging.
Don't leave
just
it
get
hanging.
halfway done. Yeah.
Don't get it halfway done. Try not to get distracted with other things. I mean, I paint miniatures for Warhammer 40k.
Exactly,
and stuff
yeah.
like
That's
that.
what I'm hoping you're going to bring up.
And I've just found that it's like, set yourself a goal where it's like, I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna build this. I'm gonna build this model and then base paint it, and then that's that goal finished, and then I'll move on to the next thing. And then if it's like, if you start painting something, then get it done before you move on to anything else. Get that one thing done before you move on to anything else. That's the one thing that I've learned over time.
Well, I know for me, kind of listening to what you're saying, like, I'm thinking, especially like painting models and stuff, that sounds hard to me. And like, I can see me like start, you know, I buy all this. I mean, I do this for a lot of things. Like, I buy all the supplies, I get it out on the table, and like, this looks hard, and I go do something else. But and that just reminds me of my first day of my current job. They told me, make this email, and HTML email is not a website. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, oh crap, they're gonna fire me. But
Quickly rushing to YouTube how-tos.
but so then what I decided to do is like, just do what you know how to do. And so step by step, I got through the email. It took me all day, but I got it done. And now, like, I'm actually like, I'm considered like the email expert at work, which is kind of a weird title. But the thing is just like, I feel like that's kind of the thing with comics. Like, I try to write comics. I've stopped and started. I've stalled out a lot. But just kind of, you know, start with what you know, work hard on that, but just make sure you're always moving forward and always setting those goals, which I know Tom has done. Do it.
Okay.
Just do it.
Well, that actually
Insert Shia LaBeouf right here. Just do it.
That actually really kind of touches on that last question from this section too, which I want to read a question.
Oh,
Okay.
I'll just leave.
When working on multiple projects, is it better to focus on one at a time or chip off pieces as you go? So we were just kind of talking about
I just
that.
answered
Yeah,
that. Sorry.
well, that, and plus we have subtly talked about this throughout this entire thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely dependent on like what it is that you're trying to accomplish. I mean, you know,
It's
like,
going to depend on the person.
and it depends on the person too. Like, people have different styles. For me, though, yeah, I think I would say only work on one thing at a time. You know, I have a lot of hobbies. I have a lot of other things that I'm interested in, but you know, I prioritize. I think that's what I mean to say. Prioritize. Figure out what you need to be spending time on and give it the time that it needs before you let yourself move on to the next thing. Which is pretty much what you're talking about, where it's like, Trey's like, you gotta finish what you start.
Right.
And yeah, if you have big ongoing projects like a comic that updates regularly, you gotta prioritize it and decide how much time you need to give it and give it that time. So, yeah.
Well, we just got one extra bonus question for why not. It's a fun one. Are there any ideas in your heads for the like voices? Do characters have voices? And specifically, if so, let's say who are they or what's your favorite ones? What voices do you have for characters?
Right. So yeah, a couple people asked for this podcast, and people have asked me before, what kind of character do you imagine, or do you think this would be a good voice for this character? Before we get into it, I just wanted to say I don't. I don't like at all. Like when I read comics or books or anything, I read in my reading voice, whatever that is.
Sometimes it's your own voice.
It might be the voice in my head, or I don't have a voice when I'm reading it. And when I'm writing the comic and when I'm thinking of the characters and thinking of the dialogue, I don't have voices for them. I mean, definitely, like, Trey did a lot of work coming up with some ideas of different voice actors that he thought would be cool. And listening to some of them, it's like, oh, yeah, I can see that. And there's definitely, I feel like if someone, like said, oh, hey, what do you think about this person? If I knew who they were talking about, I'd be able to say yes or no. But I don't have an idea. So I really put this one to Trey.
Yeah, as co-creator, Thom was like, well, I don't have an ear for voices and stuff like that. And I know in the past I've annoyed Thom with going like, oh, this is that sound from X movie whenever we're watching like a TV show or something like that. And he'd be like, what?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing is I am really bad at recognizing voices and remembering who actors and actresses are. I'm just bad at that. So when people are like, oh yeah, it's this guy who's from that movie. Like, I don't know. Even if you say the character, I'm like, I still don't know who that person is or what other things they've done. So I'm bad at this game. So I asked my friends to do it for me. And so Trey, like, I thought Trey was just gonna do like the main like 12 or 15 characters, but instead he like went through and did like almost all of the speaking characters in the comic up to this point. We're not gonna talk about all of them, but I am gonna make something.
Maybe
like,
in the future we'll like do one where it's like these are the voices and why we picked them.
Yeah,
I think we should just name the names and move on.
Well, I'm gonna I'll make a separate post with the whole list, but maybe if we just want to talk about like the treasure hunters and the Knicks and some of the ways, like, even though that is, I just said like that's most of the.
Pretty sure all the ways are just Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill? Okay, yeah. I could definitely see Mark Hamill doing some of the voicing for.
Oddly, they're just the Joker.
Weird. With different inflections.
Yeah. I'm into it.
Well, all right, we can talk about the main cast first off, the treasure hunters. So, like, for Randall, Trey, who do you have for that?
I picked Liam O'Brien.
Who is that?
He is a voice actor. He probably his biggest role is that he did, I know he has a wide range, but the role he's best known for was in Shadows of Mordor. He did Smeagol / Gollum's voice.
Oh, okay.
But he's got a broad range of different like voices that he can do, so I know he can do it. And I think he has enough like jaded, tired kind of bass in his voice that he could definitely pull off Randall Lockheed no problem.
Dix, do you have kind of a voice for Randall that you could imagine? Like, what would come out of that mouth?
I think Jonathan Frakes, like, more.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Kind of a deep, steady voice.
Riker from...
Sorry, Riker.
The TNG.
Or if you're fans of the cartoon Gargoyles, he was...
Xanatos.
He was himself.
Yeah.
He was one of the dozen Star Trek actors.
Yeah, that show had no connection to Star Trek, but had a ton of Star Trek actors. But no, just like his voice he kind of has like a voice of experience and wisdom, and just to get things done kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about you, Tom? Do you have an
No,
alternative?
I'm
I hear-
abstaining.
He's staying out of this one. He's just going to sit there, smile, and
Tom,
nod.
here's Tom.
I can probably say something for 115, but other than that, I really don't have anybody.
If I had to choose someone for now, I would probably go with Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah?
Yeah, I can see that too.
I could see
That
that.
it's kind of attitude-y, but
Yeah.
it is a casual voice. I would probably go with. So,
Yeah.
like, for Arik, I know you put Sam Riegel. Riegel or Rigel?
Regal.
Regal.
Sam Regal.
Is he another voice actor?
Yes, he is another voice actor. He's got like this very boyish charm to him, kind of easygoing attitude. So I feel like that would fit with a young Arik Gaines.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of so I did a lot of research and YouTube searching because I didn't know a lot of these people because a lot of them are voice actors. And it's funny because a lot of them, like, I would try and find just an interview of them just talking in their normal voice. And yeah, a lot of them, it's like, I don't know, like, how fitting their voice is. I'm sure they could do a very good voice, but it seems like just their character as a person matches very well, and so I believe.
And that's what
that
I
they
went
could
with
do a good
mostly,
voice.
just like who
Yeah.
would just fit into that slot really well, and then maybe just alter their voice up, down, side to side, you know, however they needed to do it to get the right pitch for said character. But their overall, just who they are as a person fits really well with the character.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what a lot of my decisions were based off of.
Yeah.
Dex, do you have an idea for Arik?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know voice actors' names as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Final Fantasy X, the main character.
Titus.
Yeah, Titus.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I kind of know that voice. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a voice.
Okay.
I don't have a voice for Arik. I would just think kind of just, guy that age.
Yeah,
voice.
kind of good
Mr.
guy,
Sequoia.
good guy voice.
Yeah, just good guy voice,
Yeah.
a hero voice. 115, that's kind of a fun one.
I want to
so,
know your guy.
Yeah.
Anybody talking into a bowl.
Oh, so Bane.
Yeah.
So Tom Hardy is Bane. He
So-
would be 115.
I'm not a fan of the dog.
So one of another big inspiration for Nextuus is Full Metal Alchemist, the anime series, and there's a character who is Soul in a giant suit of armor. That character, Al, is a little boy, so that's probably not what 115 would sound like. But there are some other characters that come into that show much later on who are like other experiments that are sort of like along the same lines, and they're older people who are like souls attached to suits of armor. And how they do the voice acting is they just have the guy talk into a big metal bowl, and it sounds like you're in a hollow suit of armor. Very cool. And so that's sort of what I always thought. And like pretty much anybody's voice, like if they were just like speaking kind of slow and methodically into a bowl, I think would make for a pretty good one.
Yeah.
So in other words, we just do Bane. He just goes, I'm looking for justice.
That's right. Yeah. There you go.
I would imagine like a Dolph Lundgren, kind of like a bit of an accent there. Probably.
Yeah,
German.
okay, yeah, I can see that. But again, into a bowl.
Yeah.
That's similar to who I thought. I just had to look him up. It's I might say it wrong. Bill Fagerbach, Dauber from Coach.
Okay.
He does voice acting and stuff like that. He does voice acting on cartoons stuff like that.
Who that is.
Oh, he's the big tall guy from Coach.
Yeah, Coach. I don't.
You don't remember
Dude,
Coach?
that guy was the guy who wrote that was
I
from
watch
Iowa.
Coach a lot.
Okay, well, whatever, Tom. You don't have an idea.
I'll
Okay.
just leave.
You're not ready. That was fun, but like,
Go
you
ahead.
go ahead. No, I forgot you hadn't gone, so you had a choice.
I have two suggestions for 115, and I picked these guys because I know they've done robot voices before.
Not a robot, just as an aside. I know, I'm just being a
I
shithead.
know, but
I was being a shithead, sorry.
but they've both can do the deep voice thing, and the second one's going to be kind of surprising. But the first one is Lucky Yates, and yeah, he's Kruger from Archer,
Oh, okay.
but he also did the voice of all of the Exticles in Frisky Dingo, and so he has that robot-esque voice. You put him into a bowl, and that's who I would imagine.
Put him in a bowl.
If you can keep him serious, yeah, he would do great. Or Paul Rubens. And I've picked Paul Rubens because, and you're a fan of this movie too, Flight of the Navigator.
Oh, yeah.
He did the voice of Max.
Yeah, he did the Pee-wee voice, which is very same. But yeah, he did the regular voice, and it was a good voice.
It was a very good
Paul
voice.
Rubens' voice as when he's not
Yeah.
being
He's a very
exaggerative.
normal
It's a good
voice,
voice.
He's got pretty good range.
And he does voice acting.
He could, we could just do Paul Rubens as the cast of Nextuus.
He could do it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, I bet he would do it. We should write him a letter.
That's right. He's probably not doing
Dear
well.
Paul Rubens.
Dugan's an interesting one. I do have an idea for Dugan. For
Yeah.
me, I think it may not sound agey enough, but when I think of Dugan, because of kind of his attitude, where he's he's a friendly guy, stuff like that, but he's got a little bit of an attitude, especially with good stuff. I would think Danny McBride.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like Danny McBride, it probably
That's a good fit. That's
because
a
he
good fit.
looks different from Dugan. It would be kind of hard to pinpoint
Right,
it. But
right.
when I could think of that, I could think of like someone like Danny McBride who does have a very good voice.
Yeah, I like that.
Dex.
This is the part of the show where Tom just says, "Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that."
yeah. I like that. Let me write that down.
I'm looking him up.
Yeah.
Okay, so from A Knight's Tale, he was the
Bigger
like
guy.
the best friend of what's his face?
William.
Yeah, his name's Mark Addy. But the thing is, so he's British.
He's
but-
the bigger guy.
Yeah, the bigger guy. But he had a show for like 3 seasons called Still Standing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically where both parents are just complete screw-ups. And they're like, they have a son who's a genius and then 2 daughters who are also screw-ups. But he had like this American accent. But the whole time we're watching it, my wife and I were just like, he kind of talks funny, but we couldn't quite place it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we finally realized that he was the guy from A Knight's Tale and that he's British and he just doesn't have like that great of an American accent. But I would pick him doing as an American accent as Dugan. So he kind of comes off as like, he kind of sounds like an oaf, but very friendly and
Yeah,
Dugan-y.
which is that character. Yeah.
Mhm.
My pick was John C. Reilly.
Nice.
Yeah.
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 Which I like that. I like his voice a lot.
Yeah.
So I could totally see that.
And he gets excitable, and I feel like Dugan can get excitable.
Yeah.
Very, yeah, definitely.
I could see that. I could definitely see. Let's see.
I could think of a great voice for Roy, and it's one I already said.
Oh,
But
yeah,
like,
yeah.
if I could not choose Dan McBride as Dugan, it would probably be Roy because he also voices a total asshole.
Yeah.
He's also an asshole in a lot of his portrayals, where he's got that smarmy
Yeah,
dick.
I could totally
Yeah.
see
And I
that.
can see that. One alternative, he plays a friendly person, but if he was to play an asshole like Roy, it would just be Dan McBride talking into the mic, and you would just kind of go, "Okay, Dan, that was really good. Can you not say the F word so much?" Well, granted, we do think Roy probably would say all those things,
Just
but
a little less.
He doesn't know everyone's mom like that, so.
Dexter, have you got a pick for Roy?
No.
No?
I like your pick.
Norman Reedus?
Yeah.
Norman Reedus is Roy. I think he could definitely pull it off, knowing his work from not only The Walking Dead, but also Boondock Saints.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and not to mention Scud from Blade 2.
I was just going to say that!
I like your pick for Tony. I think that's spot on.
Michael Fassbender?
Yeah, it would have to be like one. It would have to be someone with an accent.
You
Yeah.
think
It
so?
doesn't need to be someone with an accent.
Are there British people on Nextuus?
I mean, sure.
okay.
Why not?
It's space future. Why not?
Well, Star Wars is half Brits.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Let's do it up.
But
Let's be Star Wars.
most of those guys are evil anyway, so...
British people or Star Wars?
In Star Wars.
they
People
own
with the
it.
accents are all evil, apparently.
Except for Obi-Wan.
For like, let's say ways. Okay, like Hooded Man. That one I could also say is like an accent, and as much as I wouldn't want to, but the voice kind of is appropriate, and I'm kind of tired of him being generic, kind of serious voice, is Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, sure.
But it is also like, well, if I couldn't, I'd have to be creative because
He would be a good hooded man.
I think he'd be fine, or it'd have to be someone a little older.
He's good at chewing on lines, which I feel like would be important.
That or
for-
Simon Pegg.
Yeah. I think Benedict Cumberbatch would be good for, and I'm bad with the names in your story. But no, the guy who, he like does all the like engineering work for him, and he doesn't like seem to like Randall
Tim.
at all. Tim.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Tim.
he just sounds like Steve Gay. He just sounds like Stephen Hawking.
See, I would see him sounding more like Benedict Cumberbatch.
I was thinking more of a speaking spell.
Oh, nice.
We skipped over RJ, who is the
Yeah.
second,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the third member. I chose Michael Bean, known as Hicks in
Oh,
Aliens.
Oh,
Yeah.
I could definitely see RJ's voice being kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
But my pick for Hooded Man was Colin Firth.
Yeah.
Accents.
Yeah,
Accents.
accent, but he's
All
got
the good
kind of that
actors right now are
velvety,
British.
texture to his
Yeah.
voice that would be like talking to the devil.
Yeah.
That
I think that's
fit
appropriate.
rather well.
Yeah.
Or the king.
Ezekal, let's pick Ezekal. Who would you do for Ezekal?
Well, obviously Krillin from Dragon Ball Z Abridged.
Nice.
No, I was thinking about that, and if I did have to choose someone, I just had it on the tip of my tongue too. So you guys go, and I'll think. I'm trying to read.
I think that one, in all seriousness, would be a good Mark Hamill one.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, Mark Hamill could do a good one on that one. Another video game actor would be Orion Akaba. I think he'd do a pretty good job as Ezekal.
Oh yeah.
He's got a broad range. I've heard him do Old British Man and Excitable Young Teen before.
What might someone recognize him from?
I can't think of it off the top of my head. I really can't.
Look
But
it up, kids.
yeah, look it up. Orion Akaba.
Good luck spelling that too. So,
Oh, I remember now. Bradley Cooper.
Oh,
yeah,
Oh,
sure.
okay, yeah.
I never thought much of a range from him until he did
Rocket.
Rocket Raccoon, and it doesn't even sound like Bradley Cooper.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean that one's pretty good.
I
One,
like it.
I'm like Malden. I like your choice of Malden, which was Michael Dorn.
Yeah.
For me, when I think of him, I think Idris Elba.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that'd be
another
good.
good one too. Yeah.
He is I mean, he has become. Well, we can't get Sam Jackson to play this extremely sinister voice. So who else we got? Well, Idris Elba's probably busy between making 1 million movies right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the list. I mean, I think we said you might post this or do something more fun with it.
Yeah,
It's kind of fun to think about.
We'll put the whole thing up, and yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I don't think that, especially since I don't have like set voices for them, I'm always curious to hear what other people are thinking. It's fun to like kind of put this stuff in people's brains, but I also think it's kind of fun to like, it's like when you read a book that hasn't been adapted into a movie, how you can kind of cast it yourself, or you like imagine what the people look like, and then when a movie is actually made, it's sort of like spoiled for you a little bit, where it's like, oh, well, I guess I'll think of those people because
Why not?
because I know what they look like now. I think it's fun to kind of leave a lot of this up to people's imagination, but I also think it's kind of fun, like, because a lot of people ask about it. People like doing this, so I'm curious to know. That's for you listeners. What do you think of the selections that we came up with? I'll put a link down below to the full list that Trey came up with, and come up with your own suggestions if you think that someone else would be better for some of these
You
characters.
should hold a competition.
Yeah,
I love the Laren pick Trey did, which was Jonah Hill, which I can just just see right instantly.
Yeah.
I never said someone for RJ, but it came to my head if I had to choose someone for him, it would probably be Paul Rudd
Nice.
as
Sure,
RJ.
yeah.
I could see that.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's an average voice.
Yeah.
He has an average good voice.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good fit.
I mean, I like your pick also. I hate to go down, but I like Roz's pick for like Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Oh yeah, Negan.
Well, to be fair, yeah, Jeffrey Dean Morgan can play any villain and do a good job. He can also play any good guy too and do a good job.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty solid. This was a lot of fun. We're out of questions, which is probably good because we've gone 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah,
hopefully,
so
but
we'll see
Tom
how-
will
Good
edit-
luck editing that
Tom will
down.
edit down. This thing will probably be out by New Year's.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to thank you three guys.
No, thank you.
For
This is
coming.
always a pleasure to do this.
Thank you for your story, Tom.
Oh, you guys.
And Trey for helping him get it out.
Yay!
Stop it.
And to all of you who read it.
Yeah.
And to Santa,
Who's not real?
who's going to order it from Tom.
You shut your whore mouth.
We said no spoilers.
Santa, who is going to tell your mom to order the book from Tom at www.nextuus.com.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for listening. And I don't know what my sign off is anymore.
Keep your stick on the ice.
Keep your stick on the ice.
I'm pulling for you.
We're all in this together.